Welcome to the Nothing But the News podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Bermundo, and this episode isn't necessarily the first episode. I call this episode 0.5 because this is going to be all the content I had on my Instagram, a bunch of, stuff about the podcast, how it works, how it operates, and this is a learning experience because this is where I'm going to use software for the first time. So this isn't going to be any news. This is just more of explaining what's going on and, yeah. I want you to go back and think about a time when you saw a crazy political take, something that really made you wonder, how does someone think like this? A major cause of this is our biased media. If you're a conservative or Republican, take 10 minutes on CNN and see what they say. Vice versa, if you're a Democrat or a liberal, take 10 minutes on Fox and see what they say. It is crazy how two networks can clash with each other and talk about completely different things, giving Americans a false idea of what reality is. The Nothing But the News podcast is a place where you can form your own opinions so that they're not being formed for you. My goal is to take out all the bias and just give you facts, charts, and videos with no commentary. This is my Quest Senior project. I was never big into politics. I always thought my vote didn't matter, and there are so many other people out there that would dictate the course of an election. However, with Donald Trump, I found it shocking how some people can idolize him on one side and absolutely despise him on the other. And that is what started getting me into politics this year. I was talking with my dad sometime in August, and we were talking about the news, how different news networks can portray stuff in different ways. And I was telling him, why isn't there just a network that doesn't have bias, that kind of just gives facts, charts, and videos straight up how people would want? And it was a good idea. And when Quest Senior Project came around, I wanted to build on it. And that is how we got Nothing But the News today. So what this is, it's only going to be on Instagram, and it's going to be a 2 to 3 minute summary of the events that happened during the day. I'm not going to go into too much detail here since I still have a weekly podcast I have to operate, but this will at least keep you guys in the loop of what's going on. Top stories segment is what I'm going to start my podcast with. This is going to go into a lot more detail to that daily rundown I talked about earlier. I'm going to take the top story from each day, and instead of just giving you a summary, go in depth onto the details and the facts of that story. This next segment is the bias segment, which is by far my favorite, because this is what the Nothing But the News podcast is all about. This isn't going to be just straight up news. This is going to look at other sources of news and seeing how they can manipulate an audience, Democrat and Republican. I'm going to go in depth. It's like my favorite word. I'm going to go in depth on how they manipulate you, what strategies they use to get their audience to agree with them. This is going to be something like contextonomy or a straw man fallacy, if you know what that is. Otherwise, I'll get in depth to it later. But this is how my podcast is not just a news source. This is how it's way different from other forms of news. This next segment is Democrat versus Republican. I don't know if this is going to be a segment I do weekly, but I will definitely put this in from time to time. What this is going to be is a left versus right point of view, whether it's an article or whether it's a reaction. So I may have guests on who preside with one party or another, and it's just going to show you the discrepancy between the two views. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's just exposure. The last segment I have is going to be the one I end with on my podcast, and this is the question and answer segment. Every Thursday, I'm going to have a poll, and it's going to be on Instagram asking what you thought. I mean, this could be anything, absolutely anything. It could be some questions. Looking back at this and editing, I realized I could have made this clip a lot shorter than it had to be. Question if I like dog or cats more. It can be some really strict political question that you want me to analyze. Anything. It's wide open. I just want to hear from you guys and what you think about my podcast, my ideas, or just about the world today. Fact check portion is pretty basic. I'm going to bring this in from time to time. It could be from the bias segment, it can be the questions and answer segment, it could even be from the Democrat versus Republican segment. I'm just going to use the claims that I see or that have been made and either validate or invalidate them. Pretty simple. Alright, this is me post-editing, and I wanted to thank you, if you're still here, for watching my first or half installment of the podcast. The reason for this was strictly because I needed to work on the software. I was not going to go into my full first episode completely just lost, So this at least gave me the opportunity to edit my videos and do some transitions and stuff. I also now know I need to work on. Eye contact is a big one. It is hard staring at yourself in a mirror for that long, There's that. Talking monotone and really boring. It just doesn't suit me. If you guys know me, I am pretty fun, happy, and I like to have a good time, and it just doesn't suit me being that serious reporter. So this isn't gonna be right. It's just not gonna be a super straight formal podcast. I want you guys to have fun when you're watching this, to where you're learning news that doesn't seem like it's just watching a news station. That's all I have for you guys. If you're still here, again, thank you. I appreciate it. First official episode is March 25th. And I believe the day I post this video will be the first day of my daily rundown. So stay tuned for that. As always, have a great time. Great time.